On the day the authorities finalized our rural placements under the Sent Down Youth Program, I volunteered for the harshest post in the far northwest. My stepsister eagerly claimed the assignment to a prosperous canal town in Jiangnan, the fertile region south of the Yangtze River. Before departure, she even tried to take the jade pendant from around my neck. "Sister, this pendant looks unlucky. Let me keep it safe for you." I handed it to her with a smile, watching her put it on as if she had found a treasure. "Silly. In your past life, you stole the jade pendant and unlocked a pocket dimension containing a magical spring, living a prosperous life in Jiangnan. Meanwhile, I was tormented to death by thugs in the northwest. But you don't know that this pendant can be sustained only by the life force of a virgin from the Shen bloodline. Without it, the pendant drains its wearer's vitality instead. In my past life, I met that condition. In this life, I had already made sure I did not. Dear sister, I wish you a speedy transformation into a dried-up husk." The rural placement office was thick with smoke, making everyone's throats itch. The red-painted slogan on the wall, "A vast world, full of opportunities," was strikingly vivid. The bald director slammed 2 forms heavily onto the table. The wooden table trembled, stirring up a layer of fine dust dancing in the sunlight. "The Shen family has 2 placements under the program. One goes to the Red Star commune in Jiangnan, a fertile, prosperous region. The other goes to the Northwest Construction Corps, where the wind, sand, and harsh conditions will test anyone's endurance." The director picked up his chipped enamel mug, took a sip of strong tea, and scrutinized the 2 of us. "There are only 2 spots, and both sides are dear to me. You 2 figure it out yourselves, who goes where." Before the words had even faded, Shen Baozhu's hand had already shot out like a venomous snake. She snatched the form with Jiangnan written on it and clutched it tightly to her chest, as if afraid someone might snatch it away from her. "I'm going to Jiangnan," she shouted loudly, her voice brimming with unconcealable delight. "I'm the younger sister, and my health is weak. I can't handle the wind and sand of the northwest. My elder sister is stronger. It's only right that she go to the northwest to build character. She'd be answering the state's call. After all." She turned her head to look at me, her eyes full of provocation and smugness, the corners of her mouth lifting uncontrollably. Standing nearby, my stepmother Wang Guifan immediately chimed in, her face plastered with a fake smile, every trace of it brimming with calculation. "Yes, director. Our Ziyi has been sensible since she was little, capable and hardworking. Bao Zhu, on the other hand, has been spoiled since childhood and has a weak constitution. Sending her to the northwest would only cause trouble for the organization. It's better to let Ziyi go. She has the right sense of political duty." As she spoke, she subtly nudged me in the waist with her elbow. The force was strong, pressing against my tender flesh, the pain making me frown slightly. That was a warning. A silent warning. Warning me not to compete, not to fight, to leave the best opportunity for her own daughter. In the previous life, it was the same scene. Shen Baozhu threw a tantrum, crying and making a scene, insisting on going to Jiangnan, and even went on a hunger strike at home for 3 days. Wang Guifan forced me to sign the document for going to the northwest, saying that if I didn't go, I would be driving my sister to her death. In that godforsaken place in the northwest, I endured wind and sand for 3 whole years, my hands and feet covered in frostbite. In the end, I was locked in a sheep pen by Wang Chong, a village loafer, subjected to humiliation, and died miserably on a snowy winter night. Meanwhile, Shen Baozhu stole my jade pendant, unlocked its pocket dimension, thrived in Jiangnan, and married into a high-ranking official's family. She even mocked me in her letters, saying I was born lowly and deserved to rot in the mud. Now that I had been reborn, I looked at the repulsive faces of this mother and daughter, yet my heart was strangely calm. Calm as stagnant water, yet with undercurrents swirling beneath. I picked up the Hero brand fountain pen on the table. The nib hovered over the Northwest Construction Corps column for a second. Wang Guifan stared nervously at my hand, her eyes nearly popping out as if afraid I would change my mind. Shen Baozhu even held her breath, her fingers gripping the form turning white at the knuckles. I curled the corners of my mouth into a faint smile and swiftly signed my name. Shen Ziyi. The strokes were sharp, the pen pressing through the paper, tearing it. Okay. I put down my pen and handed the form to the director with both hands. I'm going to the Northwest. I'm answering the call to go where the motherland needs me most. To the toughest places. The director looked a bit surprised. He took the form, glanced at me, then at Shen Baozhu, who was standing nearby with a smug look on her face. Good comrade. That is true dedication. Young people like you are the pillars of the nation. Shen Baozhu let out a long sigh, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She hugged the form, laughing so hard that her whole body trembled with excitement. Sister, you're truly great. Don't worry, once I'm settled in Jiangnan, I'll definitely send you some rice to eat. I heard the rice there is incredibly fragrant. I laughed too. My smile was brighter and more sincere than hers. Great. Then I'll be waiting to eat your rice. I was only afraid that by then, she would not even have the strength to hold her chopsticks and would be left panting on the ground like a dog. When I left the rural placement office, the sunlight outside was dazzling enough to make me dizzy. Shen Baozhu hummed a tune all the way, her steps as light as a butterfly, as if she could fly. Wang Guifan held her hand, inquiring with concern, completely ignoring me as if I were invisible. I followed behind, my fingers gently brushing the hollow of my collarbone. A jade pendant hung there, tied with a red string. It had been worn close to my skin for 18 years. This was the only heirloom left to me by my birth mother, and the sole family treasure of the Shen family. In her previous life, Shen Baozhu not only snatched the spot to go to Jiangnan but also took this jade pendant before leaving. That jade pendant became her secret advantage, granting her an inexhaustible supply of resources and changing her fate. But in this life, the rules had changed. When we returned home, Shen Baozhu rushed into the bedroom to pack. She picked out the best clothes from the wardrobe, held them up against herself one by one, and stuffed them into the suitcase. Wang Guifan was busy in the kitchen, slaughtering a chicken. The old hen had been raised for 2 years, originally kept to lay eggs for the new year. At the dinner table, both chicken legs ended up in Shen Baozhu's bowl. The chicken wings were also given to her. All I got was the soup, with a few vegetable leaves floating in it, hardly a trace of oil to be seen. Shen Baozhu gnawed on a chicken leg, her mouth greasy, eating with a greedy look. She ate too quickly and choked. Wang Guifan quickly patted her back, her heart aching with concern. Eat slowly. Eat slowly. No one's going to take it from you. It's all yours. Shen Baozhu swallowed the chicken and let out a burp. She suddenly stopped moving. Her gaze went over the rice bowl, staring straight at my neck. There, a corner of the red string was exposed, standing out conspicuously. Mom. Shen Baozhu put down her chopsticks, pointed at me, her eyes gleaming with calculation. I remember now. That fortune-teller once said Ziyi was born under an unlucky star. She's going all the way to the Northwest. What if her bad luck affects me? Wang Guifan froze for a moment, then quickly caught on and immediately chimed in. That won't do. Baozhu is meant to go and enjoy good fortune. She can't be tainted by bad luck. Shen Baozhu's eyes darted, revealing a greedy expression. That jade pendant around sister's neck is said to be a family heirloom, capable of warding off evil and calming nerves. Why not let me wear it? It can help deflect bad luck for sister, and it would also count as a blessing from you to me. Here it comes. The exact same words as in the previous life. Even the greedy look in her eyes was exactly the same. Wang Guifan immediately put on a stern face and slapped her chopsticks on the table with a loud crack. Ziyi, did you hear me? Take off that broken jade pendant and give it to your sister. Anyway, you're going to suffer in the Northwest, so wearing it is just a waste. Giving it to your sister will bless her. I put down my bowl. I raised a hand and touched the warm jade. Do you want it? Shen Baozhu stood up, walked over to me in a few steps, and reached out to snatch it. Sister, this jade pendant looks unlucky, and the color isn't even right anymore. I'm doing this for your own good, keeping it safe for you. When you return to the city later, I'll give it back to you. Give it back to me. In my previous life, right up until my death, She never once mentioned the word return. She even said in her letter that this jade pendant would only be put to good use on her, while on me it would be a waste of a fine treasure. I looked at her outstretched hand. Those hands were fair and delicate, never having done a single rough task, and were exceptionally well maintained. Soon, those hands would become withered like tree bark, covered in age spots. I did not resist or cry out like in my previous life, nor did I cling tightly to the jade pendant. I swiftly untied the red string. The jade pendant fell into the palm. It was a piece of white jade, carved with ancient cloud patterns, warm and smooth to the touch, but in a place invisible to ordinary people. A trace of eerie gloom had already spread deep within the jade's core. That was the signal of hunger. Here. I handed the jade pendant over. Shen Baozhu's eyes lit up, and she snatched it away in one swift motion. Her movements were rough. Her nails scraped across my palm, leaving a white mark. You know what's good for you. She couldn't wait to put the jade pendant around her neck, admiring herself in the mirror from every angle. The moment the jade pendant touched her skin, I seemed to hear a faint, greedy sigh. It was a demon catching the scent of blood, a devil opening its eyes. Shen Baozhu was completely unaware, still showing off in front of the mirror. So beautiful. Mom, look how well this jade pendant suits me. It looks way better on me than on that bumpkin sister of mine. Wang Guifan grinned from ear to ear, her face full of wrinkles blooming like flowers. It suits you. It really does. My daughter is so blessed, everything looks luxurious on her. This is the life of wealth and nobility. I watched coldly from the side. Fools. You think you've stolen a priceless treasure. In fact, it was a death warrant. Night settled over the house. The cicadas outside chirped incessantly. In the next room, Shen Baozhu was too excited to sleep. I could hear her tossing and turning. Occasionally, a few triumphant laughs could still be heard. I lay on the hard wooden bed, watching the cold moonlight streaming in through the window. My thoughts drifted back to 3 days ago, at the moment of rebirth. Overwhelming joy and hatred nearly made me tremble, almost causing me to lose composure at the rural placement office. But I quickly calmed down. The first thing wasn't to seek revenge on Shen Baozhu. That would be letting her off too easily. Instead, it was to deal with this jade pendant. This ancestral Shen family pendant carried two opposing forces. One benevolent, the other malevolent. Activating it with blood was only the beginning. The wearer also had to meet extremely strict conditions. The wearer had to be a virgin of the Shen bloodline. Only that untouched life force could suppress the pendant's ancient malevolence and unlock the pocket dimension containing its magical spring. In my previous life, though I endured endless suffering in the Northwest, I was still a virgin when the jade pendant was taken from me. Even later, when that brute Wang Chang assaulted me, it was long after the jade pendant had left my body. So, what Shen Baozhu stole was a pendant I had nourished for 18 years, brimming with power. All she needed to do was drip a drop of blood, and she could reap the rewards effortlessly. But in this life, I'm going to destroy this trump card and make her suffer the consequences. On the very night I was reborn, I went to the abandoned threshing ground west of the city. It was eerie and terrifying, a place no one ever went to normally. But there, a group of politically condemned undesirables were forced to sleep in cowsheds and haystacks. Among them was a man named Zhou Lin. He was mute, pretending to be, usually taciturn, and tasked with sweeping the streets and cleaning out latrines, leaving him filthy all over. Everyone found him dirty, avoiding him when they saw him, and even children threw stones at him. But I knew the truth. He was the heir to the powerful Zhou family in the capital, forced into hiding after being framed. 10 years later, he would be exonerated and return to the city. He would reclaim the family business with stunning speed and become a major real estate developer. Moreover, he possessed the strongest vitality and most resilient constitution in the area. Only he could suppress the pendant's backlash. That night, the moon was dark and the wind was high, rustling the haystacks loudly. I crawled into his haystack. Zhou Lin was startled awake, gripping a sharpened piece of iron in his hand, his eyes fierce as a wolf's, ready to fight for his life at any moment. When he saw it was me, he froze for a moment, and the ferocity in his eyes softened slightly. Shenzi. His voice was hoarse, laced with caution, as if he hadn't spoken in a long time. What are you doing here? This isn't a place you should be. I didn't waste any words. I unbuttoned my collar, revealing the jade pendant beneath my collarbone. The jade pendant glowed softly under the moonlight, making my skin appear exceptionally pale. Zhou Lin, do me a favor. What favor? Take my virginity. Zhou Lin looked at me as if I were insane. His brows furrowed into deep creases. Are you out of your mind? He put away the metal piece, turned his back to me, and refused to engage further. Get lost. Don't make me throw you out. I gritted my teeth and hugged him from behind. His body was as stiff as a rock, every muscle tense. I'm being sent to the countryside. Once I'm there, I won't be able to protect myself. Rather than letting those beasts take advantage, I'd rather give myself to you. Besides, this jade pendant requires me to do this. It's a curse. I made up excuses on the fly, then desperately slipped a hand beneath the hem of his shirt and touched his burning skin. Zhou Lin spun around abruptly and grabbed my wrist. His strength was astonishing, squeezing me until it hurt. Do you know what you're doing? You'll ruin your own reputation. He stared into my eyes, his breathing growing heavy, a fire burning deep in his gaze. I know. I met his gaze without flinching, my eyes filled with unwavering resolve. Zhou Lin, take me, and I won't demand anything from you afterward. Consider it a favor I owe you. I know you've hidden something in the cellar. Help me, and I'll keep your secret. I won't breathe a word. At the mention of the cellar, Zhou Lin's pupils contracted sharply, a flash of killing intent passing through them. That was his Achilles heel, and also his ticket to turning things around. The standoff lasted a long moment. He suddenly kissed me fiercely, with punishment, with long-suppressed anger and desire, as if he wanted to devour me alive. That night, the haystack swayed, and the wind drowned out everything. I was in so much pain that cold sweat covered my forehead, my nails digging into his flesh, yet I stubbornly bit my lip and refused to cry out. The jade pendant had always hung around my neck. When I was no longer a virgin, I felt the jade pendant at my chest tremble violently, as if it had let out a scream. The gentle, ethereal aura that once flowed within it dissipated in an instant, as if it had never existed. What took its place was a cold, deathly emptiness. It was hungry. Without the untouched life force that had suppressed and nourished it, the pendant had become a malevolent entity hungry for blood. Before dawn, I dragged my aching body away, like a thief who had done something wrong. Zhou Lin leaned against the haystack, his gaze complicated as he looked at me, holding an unlit cigarette between his fingers. Shenzi, he called out to me, his voice low. If you can't survive in the Northwest, you can go find someone. He gave an address. Mention my name, and he will help you. I didn't look back, just waved my hand. Thanks. Take care of yourself too. The memory ends. A sudden cry of shock from Shen Baozhu in the next room shattered the stillness of the night. Mom! Come quick. There's blood. I curled my lips into a smile and turned over. It seemed she couldn't wait to perform the blood-binding ritual. I got up and quietly moved to the crack of the door. Peering through the gap, I saw Shen Baozhu holding a sewing needle, with a bright red bead of blood forming on her fingertip. She let the blood drip onto the jade pendant. The blood should have vanished in a burst of white light, but what happened instead was deeply unsettling. That drop of blood landed on it but did not disappear. Instead, like a drop of ink falling into clear water, it spread rapidly, dyeing the entire jade surface red, and even continued to expand. The jade pendant emitted a low buzzing sound, like the growl of a wild beast. A strange red light flickered, casting a crimson glow on Shen Baozhu's face. Oh dear! How is this different from what the fortune-teller said? Wasn't it supposed to be a white light? Wang Guifan panicked and took a step back. Shen Baozhu, however, was brimming with excitement, completely unfazed, and instead saw it as an auspicious sign. Mom, what do you know? Red is an auspicious color. It means the pendant accepts me as its owner. She felt a warmth in her chest, like having a heat pack stuck on her. The pendant was forcibly drawing away her body heat and life force. trying to fill its bottomless hunger. But she thought it meant the magical spring was opening and power was surging through her. I feel warm all over. The pendant must be protecting me. It feels wonderful. Shen Baozhu caressed the blood-red jade with an affectionate touch, her gaze mesmerized. Shen Ziyi, that fool, had such a treasure and didn't know how to use it. She deserves to be poor for life. Now it's mine. She was laughing, smiling so happily, so greedily. I watched her in the darkness, as if looking at a dead person. Go ahead and laugh, while you still have the strength to laugh. This warm and cozy feeling will soon turn into a bone-chilling cold, seeping deep into your marrow. The jade was no longer a benevolent relic. It had become a ravenous demon, one that devoured its victims whole. The day of departure arrived. The train platform was packed with people, with drums and gongs resounding and red flags fluttering everywhere. Young people bound for rural placements filled the platform, wearing ceremonial red rosettes and carrying green satchels. The sounds of crying, laughter, and farewells mingled together, creating a cacophony that made one's ears ring. Shen Baozhu was dressed particularly ostentatiously today. She wore a floral print polyester shirt with a neckline cut a bit low. On her lower half, she had on a brand new pair of blue trousers, and on her feet were small leather shoes, polished to a shine. Her hair was combed into two sleek, glossy braids, with red yarn tied at the ends, swaying back and forth with her movements. She looked youthful and charming, like a proud little princess. That blood-red jade pendant hung outside her white shirt, glaringly conspicuous, like a bloody hole. Many of the young men bound for rural placements were stealing glances at her and whispering among themselves. She reveled in this feeling of being the center of attention, puffing out her chest like a proud peacock, as if she wished she could stick her tail up to the sky. In comparison, I looked much shabbier. I was wearing a dusty old coat that Wang Guifan had discarded, with the cuffs already worn out. There were even 2 patches on my pants, each a different color. I was carrying a woven plastic sack that had once held fertilizer, stuffed with a few old clothes and a thin quilt, making me look like a refugee fleeing famine. Sis, look over there. Shen Baozhu pointed at the train heading toward Jiangnan. It was a relatively new-looking hard-seat car with bright windows. That's my train. I heard there are soft seats on it, and even a dining car. Then she pointed to the other side, where a battered, rust-covered green passenger car stood. It did not even have windows, only a few ventilation holes. That's your car. You have to take this to go to the northwest. I heard it takes 3 days and 3 nights. And you even have to use the toilet inside the carriage. It stinks to death. She covered her nose with a look of disgust, as if she could smell the odor. Sis, you have to hold on. Don't get knocked out by the smell before we even get there, that would be so embarrassing. I looked at her expressionlessly, my gaze cold. Mind your own business. I glanced at her face. Although she had put on makeup, applied blush, and covered up her natural complexion, I could still see that on her forehead. A faint dark aura was gathering, like dark clouds looming overhead. In those originally bright and lively big eyes, there was now a faint, barely noticeable hint of dark circles underneath. That was a sign of lost vitality. It had only been worn for 2 days. This jade pendant's appetite was even greater than I had imagined. It was practically a bottomless pit. Humph. You don't know what's good for you. Don't come crying to me when the time comes. Shen Baozhu shot me a glare, then turned and threw herself into Wang Guifan's arms, acting spoiled and twisting around like a candy twist. Mom, what if I miss you? I can't bear to leave you. Good girl. Write more letters when you get there. Mom will send you good food. Don't hold back. Wang Guifan's eyes filled with concern, and she stuffed a large bag of food into her hands, boiled eggs, apples, and a big pack of dried meat. To me, however, she only shoved a few cornbreads as hard as rocks, probably afraid I'd starve to death on the road and bring shame to her. Ziyi, eat sparingly on the way. Don't overdo it. I took the cornbreads and casually tossed them into my woven plastic sack. At that moment, I felt a gaze fixed on me, like needles pricking my back. I turned my head. In the dim corner of the platform, I saw that familiar figure. Zhou Lin. He was wearing his iconic tattered work clothes, holding a broom, mechanically sweeping the melon seed shells off the ground. His hat was pulled down low, covering half of his face, revealing only a resolute jawline. But his pitch-black, deep-set eyes were fixed on me, piercing through the crowd. In those eyes, there was worry, reluctance, and a hint of an indescribable emotion. Our gazes met in the air. Only for a moment. He moved his lips slightly, without making a sound. But I understood. Those 2 words were, "Take care." My heart trembled, and my eyes stung with emotion. In my past life, I hadn't noticed him coming to see me off. Perhaps he did come, but I was crying so bitterly at the time that I simply didn't see him. In this life, there was an intimate, unspoken bond between us that neither of us could ignore. I gave him a slight nod. As a farewell, the whistle sounded, deafening. The conductor began urging passengers to board, blowing his whistle. "Let's go. Let's go. Move it. Stop dawdling." Shen Baozhu picked up her lightweight little suitcase and, like a happy little bird, flew onto the train heading south to Jiangnan, turning back to give me a smug smile. I also hoisted my heavy snakeskin bag and squeezed into that stuffy, cramped train car, thick with the smell of sweat and stinky feet. There were no seats in the carriage. Everyone just sat on the floor, cramped and overcrowded, with no room to even stretch my legs. The air so stale it was suffocating. But I didn't complain. I found a spot by the corner and sat down on my woven plastic sack. I closed my eyes, shutting out the noise and the crying around me. With a long whistle, the train slowly started moving. The wheels clattered against the tracks, producing a deafening roar, like a giant beast howling. I knew this train would take me to the hellish northwest, to face the wind, sand, and bitter cold. But it also drove me away from the Shen family's quagmire, that place that devours people without spitting out the bones. No matter how hard the road ahead might be, at least this time my fate was in my own hands. Shen Baozhu's train, meanwhile, was carrying her toward the true abyss, toward death. Through the crack in the window, I took one last look at the train heading toward Jiangnan. Inside that carriage, Shen Baozhu was stroking the jade pendant on her chest, laughing uncontrollably as she showed it off to the people beside her. She didn't know. Pressed against her heart, the jade pendant was slowly driving crimson tendrils into her blood vessels and greedily draining her life. The 3-day-a-night journey was nothing short of a living hell. The carriage was as stifling as a steamer, the metal walls scorching hot from the sun, the stench of sweat, the sour smell of spoiled food, and the acrid odor of vomit mingled together, making one feel nauseous. In the corner, the urine bucket emitted a pungent smell of ammonia. Many people had started off excitedly singing and shouting slogans. By the next day, most people were exhausted, their faces sallow, lying on the ground groaning. Some fainted from heatstroke, while others cried and wanted to go home. I remained calm throughout, like an observer. I drank very little water, ate very little dry food, minimized trips to the restroom, and conserved my energy. I treated it as training, a rehearsal for revenge. Compared with what I had endured in the Northwest in my past life, this hardship was nothing. Late on the 3rd night, the train finally stopped at a desolate little station. The moment the car door was pulled open, the biting wind rushed in, carrying coarse gravel with it. Everyone couldn't help but shiver, and the drowsiness vanished in an instant. This was the vast Northwest, where I would fight for my future in the years to come. The truck sent to pick us up had been waiting outside for a long time. It didn't even have a roof, just an open-top Jiefang truck, with dirt all over the cargo bed. Everyone climbed up shivering, huddling together for warmth, like a flock of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The truck set off, jolting so violently along the dirt road that everyone bounced in the cargo bed. The sand and wind lashed against my face, stinging like a knife cut, making it impossible to keep my eyes open. I thought of Shen Baozhu. By then, she should already have reached that gentle canal town in Jiangnan. Living in a spacious and bright dormitory, listening to the soft Wu dialect, eating white rice, sipping fish soup, watching the misty rain outside the window. That kind of life must have seemed heavenly. But paradise also had a price. And sometimes that price was life itself. At the same time, at the Red Star Commune settlement in Jiangnan, Shen Baozhu frowned at her reflection in the mirror. She had just taken a shower, originally wanting to admire her new surroundings in a pleasant mood, and had even changed into a nightgown on purpose. However, she noticed that her complexion didn't look right. Why is it so yellow? And I'm breaking out too. She touched her cheek. Her skin felt dry and rough, even a bit flaky. It must be due to the change in environment. Yeah, it must be because I haven't rested well. She comforted herself by applying a thick layer of face cream. She looked down at the jade pendant on her chest. That red seemed even deeper, like clotted blood, and it even pulsed faintly. She pressed the jade pendant against her cheek, trying to absorb its supposed mystical power. Jade pendant. Oh, jade pendant. Show your power soon. I want to become more beautiful. I want to unlock the space. I want to make that bitch Shenzi die of envy. She closed her eyes and prayed, her face full of devotion. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through her chest. It felt like a needle prick, and then like a burn from fire. Ah! She exclaimed in surprise and looked down. The skin where the jade pendant had been touching had turned red. It was an allergic reaction, with several small red spots already appearing. What's going on? She wanted to take off the jade pendant to see if it was the red string that had been rubbing against her skin. But as soon as her hand touched the red string, she found it felt as if it had grown into her flesh, pulled painfully tight. Even the slightest movement sent a sharp, piercing pain through her. She struggled with great effort to loosen the red string just a little, and a purple mark had already been left on her neck. But this did not ease the pain. Instead, a chill seeped from the marrow of her bones, and no number of blankets could warm her. It must be from exhaustion. A good sleep will fix it. Shen Baozhu climbed into bed, wrapped herself tightly in the blanket, and shivered. That night, she had a nightmare. She dreamed of a giant red blood-sucking leech, lying on her chest. It had countless tentacles, piercing into her body, gulping down her blood. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out, and she could only watch helplessly as she turned into a mummy. Back in the northwest, our truck finally stopped in a dilapidated yard. This was the 5th Company station, and also our future home. Beyond it stretched the endless Gobi Desert, where only a few crooked poplar trees stood like lonely sentinels. The team leader was a one-eyed man with a scar running from his brow to the corner of his mouth, looking quite fierce. Everyone get off. What's with the dawdling? Do you think this is a sightseeing trip? He bellowed, his voice loud as a cracked gong. A few of the young women were so frightened they almost cried, their legs going weak. Men to the left, women to the right. Find your own bunks. Work starts at 5 tomorrow morning. Anyone who can't get up won't eat. No slackers here. I grabbed my burlap sack, jumped off the truck first, moving swiftly. Without waiting for the others, I walked straight into the women's dormitory on the right. Inside were 2 long communal heated brick sleeping platforms, each occupying half the room. On top were messy straw mats covered in dust and rat droppings. I scanned the area. I chose the spot farthest inside. The spot was far from the door and sheltered from drafts, with the wall at my back. It also gave me a position that was easy to defend. I tossed my woven plastic sack onto the heated brick platform, claiming the spot. Zhao Feng, who followed in behind me, was a tall, sturdy girl who looked like trouble from the get-go. She set her sights on my spot right away. Hey, newbie, she pointed at me, her tone arrogant. I've got my eye on that seat. Move. You go to the one by the door. 2 lackeys followed behind her, clearly forming a little clique, trying to intimidate me. I was tidying up the bedding. Upon hearing this, I didn't even lift my head, nor did I pause my movements. First come, first served, don't you know the rules? Zhao Feng was taken aback, not expecting me to be so bold as to talk back. Hey, I was trying to be nice. And this is how you respond. Do you know who I am? My dad is. I don't care who your father is. I spun around sharply, gripping a sharpened wooden stick I had picked up in the yard earlier. My eyes were cold as ice. carrying a fierce edge. Here, the one with the strongest fists makes the rules. I took a step forward, the wooden stick pointing directly at the tip of her nose, just centimeters away from her eyes. You want to try? Let's see whether your mouth is as tough as this stick. Zhao Feng was intimidated by my imposing manner. She had never seen such a look in someone's eyes before. That was not the look anyone expected from a young city woman newly assigned to the countryside. It was the look of someone who had seen blood and killed. The look of a desperado. She swallowed hard, her imposing manner instantly weakening as she took a step back. Fine. Don't let me. No need to be so fierce. We're all comrades. She turned away in embarrassment and took another seat, not daring to look at me again. The others who witnessed this scene looked at me differently. Their eyes were filled with awe and fear. That was more like it. In this desolate corner of the Northwest, compromise only made others see you as weak and easy to bully. You survived by baring your fangs and making people think twice before provoking you. That night, I slept soundly, even as the wind howled outside, pelting the windows with sand and gravel. Even as the earthen bed was so hard it hurt my bones. But I knew that my new life had only just begun. Life in the Northwest could be summed up in 3 words. Bitter, exhausting, and dirty. Every day, the whistle woke us before dawn. Breakfast was always 2 coarse grain buns, hard enough to kill a dog, and a bowl of watery porridge with barely any rice grains visible. After eating, we shouldered heavy hoes and headed out to break new ground. The ground was as hard as iron. Each strike of the hoe sent shocks through our hands, splitting the skin between thumb and forefinger, sometimes even drawing blood. By the end of the day, my hands were covered in blood blisters, popped, only to grow back, and grown, only to be popped again. In the evenings, I still had to fetch water, feed the pigs, and repair the dormitory. Many couldn't hold on and began faking illness, running away, or even attempting suicide. But I was like a tireless machine. I never complained about hardship or fatigue, not even when my palms were blistered and raw. I always swung my hoe with all my strength, and I consistently earned the most work points. The team leader's gaze toward me gradually shifted from suspicion to admiration. Shen Ziyi has the makings of a fine revolutionary. She works harder than any of the young men here. He publicly praised me at the assembly and even awarded me a big red flower. This quickly helped me establish a firm foothold in the company, making me a role model. No one dared to bully me casually. Everyone began addressing me respectfully as Comrade Shen. Half a month later, the postman delivered the first batch of letters. I received 2. One was from Wang Guifan, full of hypocritical sentiments, telling me to behave well and not bring shame to the family. The other was from Shen Baozhu. The envelope was thick, with a photo tucked inside. In the photo, Shen Baozhu stood by a small bridge over flowing water, dressed in a fashionable floral dress, smiling sweetly. The background was the picturesque scenery of Jiangnan, with willows swaying gently. In the letter, she went to great lengths to show off. Sis, Jiangnan is really wonderful. There's fish to eat every day here, and I've gained so much weight that my clothes no longer fit. Also, that jade pendant is truly magical. Whenever I feel tired and touch it, my whole body warms up, and I feel incredibly comfortable. Everyone says I look radiant and healthy, like a young lady from the city. At the end of the letter, she deliberately asked about me, her words dripping with malice. Sis, how are things over there? I heard that in the Northwest, there's not even water to drink. If you die of thirst, remember to tell me in a dream, and I'll burn paper offerings for you and even send some tap water to the afterlife. I held the letter, let out a cold laugh, and curled my lips into a sneer. Good complexion, rosy cheeks. The photo was small, black and white, and blurry, but I could still see the signs. Her face had grown unnaturally sharp, not the delicate oval shape people admired, but the gaunt look of skin stretched over bone. Her cheekbones protruded slightly, a sign that she was losing the fat beneath her skin and that her body was no longer absorbing nourishment. Her supposed weight gain was probably swelling caused by failing organs. And that phrase burning up all over. Silly little sister. That heat was only a final flare before the end. Feeling hot meant her life force was draining rapidly. Once the cold set in, she would be beyond saving. I casually tucked the photo into a book, using it as a bookmark. I picked up my pen and wrote a letter back to her. There was only a short line of text. I hope you eat well and put on some weight in Jiangnan. Don't let that Jade go hungry. After sending the letter, it was already dusk, the setting sun as red as blood. I was walking along the path back to the dormitory, passing through a poplar forest. The woods were dense, with shadows dancing among the trees. And usually no one came here. In my past life, it was here that Wang Chang set his sights on me and dragged me into the depths. That fear was etched deep into my bones, making my heart race with every step. I couldn't help but tighten my grip on the self-defense weapon in my pocket. It was a small knife made from a discarded hacksaw blade, incredibly sharp, hidden in my sleeve. Suddenly, a whistle sounded from ahead, frivolous and piercing. A few rowdy-looking young men blocked the way. The one leading them was none other than Wang Chang. He wore a greasy sheepskin coat and a hat tilted to one side, with a blade of foxtail grass dangling from his mouth. His eyes roamed over me brazenly, as if appraising a piece of merchandise. "Oh, isn't this our company's model soldier Shenzi?" He spat out the blade of grass in his mouth and sidled over with a cheeky grin. A wave of alcohol stench hitting me. "Finished work? Why are you walking alone? You look lonely. Want me to keep you company?" The lackeys behind him burst into jeering laughter, their leering eyes full of contempt. "Chang, this girl looks pretty cold. Think she'll warm up on the heated brick bed?" Filthy words, unbearable to the ear. In my past life, hearing these words only made me tremble, only made me cry and beg for mercy, yet I earned not a shred of pity. In the end, all I got was even worse bullying. But now, I stopped in my tracks, staring at him coldly, my gaze as sharp as a knife. "Move, you mangy dog." Wang Chang was taken aback, seemingly not expecting me to dare speak to him like that. His face darkened, a vicious look appearing, and he threw his hat to the ground. "You ungrateful bitch, refusing to take a hint, huh?" He reached out to grab my collar, his movements rough. "In this territory, no one dares to talk to me, Wang Chang, like that. Believe me, I'll deal with you today. I'll show you what a real man is." His hand hadn't even touched me yet. I was already moving. I didn't retreat. Instead, I lunged forward with startling speed. My right hand pulled the steel saw knife from my pocket. A cold gleam flashed. The blade pressed tightly against his neck, a mere hair's breadth away from slitting his carotid artery. Wang Chang's movements froze. He felt the coldness on his neck, along with the resolute killing intent emanating from me. It was not an empty threat. It was the reckless resolve of someone truly willing to strike and take him down with her. "You, what are you doing?" His voice trembled slightly, and a flicker of fear flashed in his eyes. "Wang Chang, I heard you stole diesel from the company's tractor 2 nights ago and sold it to cripple Zhang from the neighboring village." I stared into his eyes, my voice low but every word clear, like a thunderclap. Wang Chang's pupils suddenly dilated, and his face turned deathly pale in an instant. "You, how do you know?" He had done this with extreme secrecy. Not even his most trusted brothers knew about it. Of course I knew. In my past life, he told me himself while drunk, boasting about it to intimidate me. I never expected this would become my leverage over him. "Not only do I know that, but I also know you stole flour from the settlement canteen and spied through the window while the young women were bathing." I pressed the blade a little harder, and a line of blood appeared on his neck, with beads of blood seeping out. "If I go tell the instructor, and with this knife, what do you think you'd be charged with? Hooliganism, theft, or sabotage of production?" In that era, those charges could get him shot or sentenced to spend the rest of his life breaking stones in the Gobi Desert. Wang Chang was completely panicked. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead, dripping onto the blade. "Don't, Comrade Shen. Please, let's talk this out." He raised his hands, his legs trembling so badly he nearly wet himself. "I was wrong. I didn't know who I was dealing with. Please, just let me go." The few lackeys behind him were also scared stiff, none daring to step forward, all shrinking back. I let out a cold snort, withdrew the knife, and wiped it on his clothes. Get lost. From now on, when you see me, take a detour. Otherwise, next time this knife won't just cut skin, it'll cut your throat. Wang Chang, as if granted a pardon, scrambled away, even losing one of his shoes as he fled. Run. This woman is crazy. She's a murderer. Watching their fleeing figures in panic, I put away the knife. Not a single ripple in my heart. To deal with someone like that, you have to be tougher and meaner than him. Back at the dorm, I had just lain down for a short while. The team leader suddenly sent someone to find me. Looking flustered. Shen Ziyi, there's an urgent telegram for you. Hurry to the battalion headquarters. An urgent telegram? Telegrams were expensive and charged by the word. No one sent one unless something serious had happened. My heart stirred. Could something have happened to Shen Baozhu? I arrived at the team headquarters and took the telegram. There was only a short line of text on it, the handwriting scrawled, as if written with trembling hands. Sis, save me. The Jade Pendant is bleeding tears. The Jade Pendant shed bloody tears. Staring at those shocking words on the telegram, I couldn't help but curl my lips. Those were no ordinary bloody tears. They were the mark of the Jade Pendant's complete demonization, its signal of feeding. The so-called bloody tears meant the evil energy inside the pendant had reached full capacity and begun leaking out as a corrosive aura of blood and malice. This kind of energy is highly corrosive, eating away at the wearer's skin and even penetrating the internal organs, turning a person into a living vessel. Shen Baozhu, your good days are over. The gates of hell have already opened for you. I crumpled the telegram into a ball and casually tossed it into the company's latrine, watching it sink. Save you. Dream on. I lay on the heated brick bed, listening to the howling wind outside, sleeping especially soundly. Even my dreams were sweet. Early the next morning, I took the initiative to go see the team leader. Team leader, I'd like to apply to herd sheep at Red Rock Gully. Red Rock Gully was the company's most remote and demanding grazing post. It lay more than 20 kilometers from base camp, deep in the desolate Gobi Desert. There were only a few half-collapsed dugouts, a few hundred sheep, and nothing but swirling yellow sand and packs of wolves. Usually, no one was willing to go there. Only young people who had broken the settlement's rules were sent there for punishment and re-education. The team leader stared at me with wide eyes, as if looking at a freak. Shen Ziyi, have you lost your mind? There's not even a single person to talk to there, and you have to watch out for wolves. What's a young girl like you going there for? I want to train myself. My face was full of righteousness, and my eyes were firm. Besides, it's quiet there. I want to use the time herding sheep to study on my own and contribute more to building the country. Actually, I went there to dig for treasure. In my previous life, I heard that beneath the grasslands of Red Rock Gully, a special associated mineral was buried. Later, a national exploration team discovered a massive vein of rare metals there, shocking the world. The original discoverer of that vein was an old shepherd who stumbled upon it while digging a cellar. In this life, I would seize the opportunity first, not only to hand it over to the state in exchange for a future, but also to pave the way for Zhou Lin and give him the seed capital for his first fortune. The team leader couldn't persuade me otherwise and finally agreed. He even thought my awareness was unbelievably high, so he specially approved a bag of white flour and a jar of pickles as a reward, and even had a local send me a hunting dog. I packed my things, took the dog, and rode the supply wagon to Hongshigu. The place was truly desolate. A few dilapidated earthen shelters lay half buried in the ground, surrounded by withered needlegrass, while the wind carried nothing but sand. Only the bleating of sheep breaks the silence. But I loved it. There was no scheming, no Shen family drama, and no vermin like Wang Chang. After settling in, I started my treasure hunt plan. Every day after herding the sheep, I would grab a shovel and start digging at the spot I remembered, under the slope next to the sheep pen. To outsiders, I said I was digging a cellar to store vegetables. Days passed one after another. I wasn't idle either, occasionally writing letters home or replying to telegrams. Of course, The content was all about provoking Shen Baozhu and feeding her lies. Baozhu, I heard that a bleeding jade pendant is an auspicious sign, a symbol of wealth and good fortune. It means it has accepted you as its owner. Don't ever take it off. The more it hurts, the more powerfully it is purifying your blood. You need to feed it more blood. It only acts up when it's hungry. Once it's full, it'll be fine. I imagined Shen Baozhu's expression upon reading these words, probably crying but too afraid not to believe, like a drowning person clutching at straws. 1 month later, I received another letter. This time, the envelope was bulging and felt a bit rough to the touch. When I opened it, a large handful of hair fell out, dry, yellowed, like a bundle of tangled weeds, still with hair follicles attached. There was also a photo. In the photo, Shen Baozhu had completely changed. Her once round face was deeply sunken, with cheekbones protruding alarmingly, like a skull wrapped in a layer of skin. Her eye sockets were dark and hollow, her gaze terrified and unfocused, filled with despair. Her neck was wrapped in thick gauze, faint traces of blood seeping through. The gauze stained red. The handwriting in the letter was crooked, as if scratched by a chicken's claw, and in some places, it even punctured the paper. Sis, I'm so scared. All my hair has fallen out. My teeth are loose too. That jade pendant can't be taken off anymore. The flesh has grown into it. The doctor said it's skin adhesion. To have surgery, they'd have to cut the flesh away. Mom won't let me. Says it's a blessing. Mustn't bring bad luck. Sis, am I going to die? I want to go home. Reading the letter, I could almost smell the stench of decay. Did that fool Wang Guifan still think it was a blessing? Or was she also bewitched by the jade pendant? Or perhaps, she simply couldn't bear to part with the supposed pocket dimension and its magical spring, willing to gamble even at the cost of her daughter's life. Either way, mother and daughter were digging their own graves. I burned the photo. I burned the hair too, watching the flames devour those dry strands, emitting a burnt smell. I couldn't help but frown. Not enough. I murmured to myself. This pain is nothing compared to even a fraction of what I endured in my past life. Just then, the sound of barking came from outside. Dahuang, my yellow dog, was barking fiercely into the distance, its fur standing on end. I grabbed the shovel and rushed out. Through the wind and sand, a figure emerged, tall and upright, yet walking somewhat unsteadily, as if injured, carrying a huge bundle on his back, with a stick in his hand. As I got closer, I could clearly see his face. It was a face etched deep in my memory. Zhou Lin. His face was covered with stubble, his lips chapped and peeling, his eyes sunken. Clearly, he had traveled a long way and endured much hardship. But the moment he saw me, a light brighter than stars ignited in those wolf-like eyes. Shenzi. He called my name. His voice hoarse as if he'd swallowed sand. I froze, the shovel clattering to the ground. You, how did you get here? The farm where he was sent down was hundreds of kilometers away, with deserts and snow-capped mountains to cross in between, and even uninhabited areas to traverse. How did he manage it? Zhou Lin walked up to me and threw the bundle on his back to the ground. A dull thud echoed. I wanted to see you. So I came. He said it casually, but I knew how difficult this journey had been, how easily he could have died along the way. He looked at me, suddenly grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Besides, I've also been reborn. At that moment, the air seemed to freeze. The wind stopped, and the sand settled. I stared wide-eyed, looking at him in disbelief. You too. Zhou Lin stepped forward and pulled me into his arms. His embrace was cold, carrying the scent of wind and snow, yet it held a reassuring presence that calmed me. In my previous life, after I was politically exonerated, I went looking for you, but you were already dead. I found Wang Chang, crippled him, chopped him up, and threw him to the wolves. I sat by your grave for 3 days and 3 nights. Later, I died too, saving someone at a construction site. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in that haystack. His voice trembled slightly as he tightly wrapped his arms around my waist, as if he never intended to let me go again. Ziyi. In this life, I will never let you face the storms alone again. Together, we will reclaim everything that was taken from us. Zhou Lin's arrival made Red Rock Gully no longer desolate. He was like an untiring beast, brimming with vitality. Not only did he help me herd the sheep, but he also took over my digging work. Is there something beneath here? He looked at the pit that had already been dug 2 meters deep and asked me. I nodded, looking mysterious. There's a big treasure. Something that can rebuild your future, something the whole country would value. Zhou Lin didn't ask further, just picked up the pickaxe and got to work. He was strong, worked fiercely, and had a very methodical approach. In less than half a month, we dug down to a layer of black rock deep in the cellar. When we cracked it open, it gleamed with a metallic sheen and felt heavy in our hands. This is it. My hands trembled with excitement as I held the stone, cradling it like gold. It was an extremely rare ore containing metals urgently needed by the defense industry. Although Zhou Lin didn't know much about ores, he understood the look in my eyes. He carefully collected those ores and hid them in the deepest part of the cellar. These things can't be shown for now. Wait for the right opportunity. Wait for the policies to change. This will be our biggest bargaining chip. Besides mining, our relationship also deepened. On this uninhabited wilderness, we lived like a couple beyond society's reach. During the day, we herded together and lay on the grass watching the clouds. At night, we huddled in the dugout for warmth, listening to the wolves howling outside. He told me the story of his rise and fall in the business world in his past life, teaching me how to read people and how to do business. I told him about my revenge plan in this life, describing Shen Baozhu's miserable state. When I mentioned Shen Baozhu's current condition, Zhou Lin merely snorted coldly, his eyes filled with disgust. One reaps what one sows. That jade pendant, I've heard of it too. It's an evil object that feeds on the lifeblood of the greedy. But, he looked at me with a trace of concern in his eyes. Are you really going to just watch her die? She is, after all, your sister in name. Of course not. A flash of ruthlessness passed through my eyes, sharp as a poisoned blade. Death is too easy, too merciful for her. I want her to struggle in despair, to watch herself rot bit by bit, until she has no choice but to beg me, to kneel before me in repentance. Nearly 2 years passed. By the second winter, heavy snow had sealed the mountain roads. Red Rock Gully became an isolated island, cut off from the outside world. Even the supply trucks could not get through. It was exactly the peace we wanted. We had stored enough grain and firewood, living a quiet, almost idyllic life. However, the peace did not last long. When spring came, an urgent telegram shattered the tranquility. It was sent by Shenjia, forwarded through the company. Father is critically ill. Return quickly to see him one last time. I glanced at it and let out a cold laugh. My father, the man who worked far away all year round, never cared about me, and only knew how to send money to Wang Guifan. In my previous life, he lived just fine, never fell critically ill until I died, and didn't even come to see me once. It was clearly a trap. Shen Baozhu must have been on her last legs, leaving Wang Guifan no choice but to trick me into going back. After all, only the person who caused the problem can solve it. They probably thought that since the jade pendant originally belonged to me, I might have a way to remove it or save a life. Zhou Lin stared at the telegram, his brows furrowed. This is clearly a trap. Going back could be dangerous. I know. I folded the telegram and put it in my pocket, but I should go back and bring my plan to its end. After all, I want to see with my own eyes what my dear sister has become. If I don't witness her fate with my own eyes, the hatred in my heart will never fade. I'll go with you. Zhou Lin's tone was firm and brooked no argument. No, your identity is too sensitive right now. Without a letter of introduction, you can't go anywhere. If you get caught, it'll be considered an escape offense, and you'll end up in jail. I have a way. Zhou Lin pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his chest. It was a certificate stamped with a red seal, stating that due to work requirements, so-and-so was being transferred to a certain place. This was a trick from my past life. Forging a fake certificate isn't hard for me. Besides, the situation is chaotic now. And the checks aren't that strict. I looked at him, feeling a surge of emotion in my heart. This man would dare to do anything for me, even if it meant breaking the law. A few days later, we requested leave from the company. The reason given was that my father was critically ill and Zhou Lin was accompanying me home. Although the captain was reluctant, he had no choice but to approve it. After all, family duty mattered greatly, and since I performed so well in Red Rock Gully, he had no reason to stop me. We boarded the train back to the city. This time, my mood was completely different. The anxiety and oppression I felt when I first arrived were gone. Only the impending pleasure of revenge nearing its end, and the anticipation of the future. On the train, Zhou Lin kept holding my hand, fingers intertwined. Once we arrive at the Shen family, no matter what happens, just step back. I'll be in front. I'll handle the dirty work. I smiled and leaned on his shoulder. Don't worry. The Shen family now is nothing but a bunch of toothless tigers. I'm not just going to pull their teeth, I'm going to skin them alive. Returning to the city I had been away from for 2 years. The streets were still familiar, yet they carried a sense of desolation. The courtyard of the Shen family was eerily quiet. At this time of day, Wang Guifan would usually be in the yard, chatting loudly with neighbors to show off, or grumbling and cursing. Now, the courtyard gate was tightly shut, withered leaves covered the ground, and the couplets on the door were torn. A lifeless atmosphere hung in the air, as if no one had lived there for a long time. I knocked on the door. No one answered. Zhou Lin kicked the door open directly. With a loud bang, the lock flew off completely. The yard was empty, overgrown with weeds, but panicked voices came from inside the house. Who is it? Who's outside? Is it the debt collectors? It was Wang Guifan's voice. Aged, hoarse, with a neurotic tremor. I walked into the room. A strong smell of herbal medicine mixed with a stench of decay hit me, nearly making me gag. The curtains were drawn tightly, the room as dim as a tomb, with not even a light on. Wang Guifan rushed out of the inner room, still holding a broom in her hand. Seeing me, she froze, and the broom fell to the ground. In just 2 years, she had aged 10 years. Her hair was gray and messy, like a bird's nest, under-eye bags sagging, eyes murky and dull, complexion sallow. Seeing Zhou Lin behind me, she flinched in fear and shrank back. You, didn't you say Dad was critically ill? I stared at her coldly, my gaze as sharp as a knife. Where is he? Why haven't I seen him? Wang Guifan's eyes darted away, unable to meet mine, her hands trembling incessantly. He's in the hospital, hasn't come back yet. Stop pretending. I interrupted her, stepping closer with each word. It's about Shen Baozhu, isn't it? Where is she? At the mention of that name, Wang Guifan reacted like a cat with its tail stepped on, suddenly shrieking. It's all your fault. All your fault. You're a jinx. She lunged at me, trying to scratch my face with her sharp nails. Zhou Lin stepped forward, grabbed her arm, and gave her a gentle shove. Wang Guifan fell to the ground like a torn sack. Help! Murder! That city girl is attacking me. Is there no law and order anymore? She started throwing a tantrum, rolling on the ground and slapping her thighs while wailing. I ignored her and walked straight into the inner room. That was the source of the stench. I pushed open the door. The sight before me, even though I had mentally prepared myself, still made me gasp and my stomach churn. What lay on the bed could no longer be called a person. It was a skeleton. Skin and bones, with almost no hair left, only a few sparse white strands clinging to her scalp. Her skin was a sickly gray, covered in age spots and black blemishes. Her limbs were withered, curled up on the bed like a shriveled monkey. The most terrifying part was her chest. That jade pendant. By now, it had turned a deep, dark red, like a beating heart, even larger than her own. The skin around it had festered, with red granulation tissue growing out, tightly wrapping around the edges of the pendant. It was as if the jade had grown into the flesh. Or rather, the jade was devouring this body, using it as nourishment. Sis. The person on the bed stirred, as if sensing someone had arrived. The sound they made was like nails scraping across glass, harsh and faint. She turned her head, her bulging eyes fixed on me with an unblinking stare. There was no longer the arrogance in her eyes, only endless fear, pain, and venom. Help! Help me! She stretched out a withered, bony hand, trying to grab me, her nails terrifyingly long. I stood by the bed, looking down at her from above. Shen Baozhu, is this the blessing you wanted? Is this the wealth you desired? No, this isn't a blessing. It's a ghost. A ghost. She began to cry, but her tear ducts had dried up, unable to shed tears, leaving only hoarse wails. Take it away. Please. It's yours. Take it away. I'm giving it back to you. I laughed. I laughed so hard that tears almost came out. Take it away. Back then, you were the one who insisted on keeping it for me, saying it was for my own good. I told you, once this pendant binds itself to an owner, the bond lasts until death. Right now, it sees you as its finest meal. Unless. I deliberately drew out the last syllable, letting the suspense build. A glimmer of hope flickered in Shen Baozhu's eyes, the instinct to survive. Unless what? Tell me. As long as you can save me, I'll agree to anything. I'll give you all my family fortune. At that moment, Wang Guifan also crawled in, knelt at my feet, and bowed until her forehead was bruised. Ziyi, I'm begging you. I was wrong before. I'm on my knees. Please save your sister. She is innocent. I looked at this mother and daughter, as if watching two ants, two pitiful insects. Unless someone is willing to use their own life to draw the evil energy from the Jade Pendant. I casually made up a lie, but my tone was deadly serious. As long as a close relative willingly digs out the Jade Pendant and implants it into their own body, they can die in her place and bear all of this for her. The room fell into a deathly silence. Shen Baozhu suddenly turned her head to look at Wang Guifan. Her eyes were filled with longing, even madness. Mom, save me. You love me the most. Please save me. Wang Guifan was stunned. She looked at the terrifying blood Jade. Then at her daughter, who was neither human nor ghost. Her body began to tremble. Then, she suddenly shrank back, all the way to the doorway. No, I can't. I want to live too. I don't want to die yet. I'm still young. The light in Shen Baozhu's eyes instantly extinguished. What replaced it was a maddening hatred, the despair of being abandoned. You said you loved me the most. You said you'd do anything for me. Liar. You're all liars. Suddenly, driven by a final surge of strength, she bolted upright in bed. She grabbed the scissors from the bedside table, not to stab herself. But Wang Guifan, since you won't save me, then we'll die together. You're my mother, so you should die for me. Pfft. The scissors plunged into Wang Guifan's shoulder. Blood splattered. In that instant, the Jade Pendant seemed to sense the stimulation of blood. A bright red light flared up, illuminating the entire room. The room descended into chaos. Wang Guifan screamed in agony, clutching her shoulder and rolling on the ground, wrestling with Shen Baozhu. But this was merely a deathbed struggle. Shen Baozhu had exhausted her last bit of vitality with that final move. She soon lost all her strength, collapsing limply onto Wang Guifan, her hands still fiercely gripping Wang Guifan's hair. At the same time, that Jade Pendant let out a crisp crack sound. Like a mosquito that had sucked its fill of blood, its belly burst open. Cracks appeared on the surface of the Jade Pendant, dense and numerous. The red light dissipated like smoke, vanishing into the air. Shen Baozhu's body began to convulse violently. A gurgling sound came from her throat, as if something had seized her windpipe, making it impossible to breathe. Then, her skin rapidly turned black, as if it had instantly undergone a century of weathering. Finally, her eyes were wide open, and she was completely still. She died with her eyes open, unwilling to accept it, and that Jade Pendant shattered into powder with a crack. Along with the pool of bloody, rotting flesh, it fell to the ground, turned into a pool of black water, emitting white smoke. The stench was overwhelming, suffocating. Wang Guifan was terrified. She pushed Shen Baozhu's corpse away, huddled in the corner trembling, her face covered in blood. muttering to herself in a daze. Ghost. Ghost. There's a ghost. She went mad, completely driven insane by this horrifying scene. I watched all of this coldly. Not a trace of sympathy. It was the price of greed. A fate they had brought upon themselves. Zhou Lin walked over, took my hand, and covered my eyes. Let's go. This place is too filthy, don't let it stain your eyes. I nodded. Before leaving, I recovered the property deeds, bank books, and jewelry my mother had left me, the inheritance Wang Guifan had hidden away. They were rightfully mine. I called the police. After the police arrived, they vomited at the gruesome scene, even suspecting a biochemical attack. The forensic examination determined that Shen Baozhu died from a rare acute skin necrosis disease, compounded by multiple organ failure caused by long-term malnutrition. As for Wang Guifan, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia and sent to a psychiatric hospital, where she is said to spend her days shouting that ghosts are eating people. After the authorities restored legal ownership of the house to me, I sold it. I donated half the money to a local fund that helped poor children stay in school. The remaining half was kept as the startup capital for Zhou Lin and me. After handling all of this, Zhou Lin and I went to the cemetery. At my mother's grave, I placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. Mom, everyone who harmed you has gotten their comeuppance. That devouring family is gone too. From now on, I only have myself. But I will live well. Zhou Lin knelt beside me and bowed deeply. Mom, there's also me. I'll take care of Zi for the rest of my life and spoil her like a princess. I looked at him, my eyes slightly moist. Let's go. Back to the northwest. Let's go home. 3 years later, the Red Rock Gully in the northwest had undergone a dramatic transformation. Based on the clues we provided, the National Geological Survey team discovered a super-large rare metal mine here. Rows of drilling towers rose up, breaking the silence of the wilderness. Machines roared and red flags fluttered. As the discoverers and guides, Zhou Lin and I received high honors and became heroes. We were not only awarded generous bonuses but also given 2 spots to return to the city for university, recommended to the best universities in Beijing. The day I left the northwest, the weather was exceptionally clear, with blue skies and white clouds. We sat in the jeep, looking back at the land where we had once strived. Zhou Lin held my hand, his palm warm. A simple silver ring was on his finger. He had made it with his own hands. Though it wasn't worth much, in my heart it was 10,000 times more precious than that jade pendant. Zi, what do you want to do after going to Beijing? I gently touched my slightly swollen belly. Our child was growing there. I want to study medicine. I remembered the look on Shen Baozhu's face before her death and the greed that had consumed her. I want to heal the sick and save the dying. But I also want to heal the hearts of people. And you? Zhou Lin gazed into the distance, a glint shining in his eyes, a glint that belonged to his ambition. I'm going into business. What I didn't finish in my last life, I'll do on an even bigger scale in this one. I want to build many houses so you and the children can live comfortably, never having to suffer from the cold again. We exchanged a knowing smile. The train whistled. The curtain of a new era was rising. We had no jade pendant and no magical pocket dimension. But we had each other, along with the memories and wisdom of 2 lifetimes. That was our greatest advantage and our most priceless treasure.